Hello everyone, my name is Cassie and I am an artist and card maker. I recently shared this card on Instagram and got asked how I made this background. So today we're going to look at the technique, the tool, and how to make the tool. Let's go ahead and get started. To create this background, I used watercolors and a technique called lifting. That's where you lift wet pigments off of your page. If you want a specific pattern, you need a blotter paper with that pattern in it, and that's what we're going to make today. To get started, we're going to need something that you probably already have in your house: toilet paper. This doesn't have to be anything specific or fancy, but you do want one that's very absorbent. You're also going to need an embossing folder with the pattern that you want. This one is Doodle Heart by Tracy Hay. And last but not least, a spray bottle with water. In order for this to work, we need to build up something that is thicker than just toilet paper. So we're going to tear off a couple of sheets of toilet paper, mist them with water. You just want it to be damp, not dripping wet. Then do both sides on this first one. Then we're going to stack another layer of toilet paper on, and then mist that with some water. Again, just damp, not soaking wet. You're going to do this multiple times. For my toilet paper and my embossing folder, I needed 7 layers. You need to test it out with your toilet paper because each toilet paper is slightly different. Once you have your wet toilet paper stack, go ahead and place that in your embossing folder and run it through your machine. And you have your blotting paper. Now right now it is still wet, and that's not very helpful for us, so you're going to want to cut off any excess that's down here. Actually run this part through another embossing folder if you want. After that, we're going to go ahead and set this aside to dry completely. I have best results when I let it dry naturally and don't use any heat. When it's dry, it should be fairly stiff and should hold the shape well. Now that we have our blotter, let's go ahead and put it into action. We're going to start by taping our paper to a board. We're going to be using a lot of water, so you will want to tape your paper down, and you'll want it on a board so that you can move your paper around while the paint is wet. I've chosen 3 different paints: a warm green, a cool green, and a pink for this. I have a paper towel and a large brush, as well as some water and my blotter. I like to start by adding a little bit of water to my pans of paint to get them to start activating. Next, you're going to wet your entire page. Now I like to go over it a couple of times with the water, kind of letting it sink in. You want an even sheen across your entire page. Now it's time to play. I add colors randomly across the page. I like to leave some light spots and some dark spots. You can flick in water, you can tilt your board. Just let the pigments play in the water on the paper. If you have excess water dripping off, you can blot that up with a paper towel. And I just continue playing until I like what I have. This is a technique that is different every single time that I do it. While my paper is drying, I like to keep the board moving and watch the pigments move across the page. When they stop moving, then you're ready to blot. To blot, you're simply going to lay your blotter on top of your wet paper and lightly press down. The longer you leave it on, the more pigment it will lift up. Now your results are going to vary depending on how wet your paper is, how thick your pigments are, and all sorts of other variables. Each time you do it, it will be different, and you need to kind of figure out for yourself where your sweet spot is. You can add a little bit more paint in areas. You can also blot off more paint with a paper towel if you want to open up some more areas of light. After you're happy, go ahead and set it aside to dry. When it is completely dry, you can remove your tape. If you remove your tape while your paper is still wet, you will tear your paper. I love how unique each background turns out every time I do this. I use the exact same colors on both of these pieces, and they look so different. After completing my background, I simply stamped on my flowers and painted them in. This technique works well with a lot of different embossing folders, and each one will give you a unique look. Let's take a look at a couple more that I've done. The first one uses the Altenew Mighty Waves embossing folder. This is what it looks like. And you can see that wave pattern in the background. This works great for skies as well as just a textural background like is used here. This next one uses the mini cobblestone embossing folder from Tim Holtz. This leaves a very interesting pattern. You can use the front or the back of this, and you can get this really interesting crackled effect. This is a really fun technique to just play with. Play with your colors, play with your embossing folders, and just create a lot of backgrounds. I hope this inspires you to pull out your paints and get creating. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing so you can see more videos from me. And if you have any questions or want to see anything else, go ahead and leave me a comment and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I hope you have a wonderfully creative day, and I'll be back soon.